Good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, the 15th of April, so we're halfway through April, and it is the 20th day of the South African lockdown, which essentially means we are on the home stretch, perhaps. Anyway, to get through 20 days is quite a considerable amount of time, quite a milestone. Probably, as usual, it's worth just taking some time for reflection on how you've experienced this time, these 20 days. Is there anything that you've learned about yourself during this time? Is it getting easier? Is it getting harder, perhaps? Just check in on these key questions. How are you feeling about the prospect of beginning to think about perhaps returning to normality in the weeks and months ahead? What is that process going to be like? As much as the transition to the lockdown was an adjustment and required some psychological strategies to manage that, of course, transitioning back again, however incremental that process will be, and whenever it happens, is going to also require some assessment and reflection too. So these are some key questions just to reflect on and continue to use this experience as an opportunity for development and of course increased self-awareness. So we've been speaking about a couple of different techniques and strategies for managing your well-being and your wellness, physical and specifically your mental wellness and your psychological functioning during this lockdown. And that's what the focus of this lockdown video series has been. The last two sessions have been parts 1 and 2 on positive psychological techniques. And this is the third and final part of that mini-series in the broader series. Which is focused on mindfulness. So we've spoken a bit about self-compassion, we've spoken about other techniques such as gratitude, I should say, acts of kindness, connecting with people, building a meaningful life. Today we will speak just a little bit on the idea of mindfulness. So of course, 5-10 minutes is not enough time really to get into any topic in very significant detail, but of course we will give an overview and hopefully that's a building block for you exploring this more and taking it further as you develop these skills. So it's important to understand the inner nature of our minds and the inner workings of our minds before we actually speak about what mindfulness is. If you've ever taken a moment to reflect on what's happening with the way you think and the way you experience the world, you might begin to notice that our thoughts are very disorganized and very scattered. Our attention is all over the place. Our mind is running at 200 kilometers an hour. And the scary part is we actually have very little control over this. Essentially, mindfulness then is how we direct our attention. So it's a practice that can be learned. And if you've ever invested any time, or if you haven't invested any time or energy in enhancing these skills, it's very likely that you're not going to be very good at it. That's what we'd expect. So considerable amounts of our mental energy is directed at the past, dwelling on the past, regrets, playing the what if game. If only I had done that, or if this person had done that, or why did this person do this? And we get lost in this regret and this blame and these cycles. Perhaps even more time is spent on the future and worrying about the future, what's going to happen next, all this uncertainty, or the stress that comes with that as well, what might or might not ever happen. And what's left is the present, and almost no time is left for us actually just being present in the current moment. So I'm sure this is something you've heard of. This is kind of conventional wisdom that you need to be present, you need to be in the moment, but perhaps you haven't fully understood why it's important or how important it is. So through this process of allowing our attention to wander and being distracted by thoughts of the past and thoughts of the future, it robs us of our capacity to enjoy life as it's happening. So this is extremely detrimental, as it means we're often experiencing a stress response, a physical stress response due to our thoughts creating situations that are not even real. A nice way of putting this is that we throw cognitive kindling on the emotional fires. I'm not sure who originally said that. I can't attribute that quote. It's not mine, unfortunately. But it is nice imagery to show how our thoughts amplify our negative emotional states. And the importance, of course, of having control over these thoughts. So mindfulness is not about control necessarily. That can come after mindfulness. Mindfulness is just about awareness. So ultimately all we have are these moments, being sensory the sensory experience that we have in these moments is all we have. And life, of course, is made up of just a succession of millions of these moments. Mindfulness allows us to resist the distractions of our wild, untrained mind, so that we can fully occupy the present moment. The science of happiness suggests that this is a key skill in building a happy life. So to be mindful then is to have the capacity to direct our attention towards the experience, the inner workings of our mind and our bodies. It's a neutral perspective. It's curious. It's non-judgmental. It's explorative. It's gentle. So again, this is not going to come naturally. And if you try it right now, you'll probably find that you don't get further than a few seconds, and then your thoughts will start wandering. This can be very frustrating. It can be very humbling as well. And meditation is one practice for developing these skills and increasing our capacity for mindfulness. So the real value of mindfulness becomes clearer as we start to see what it really allows for. To be able to be grateful and present in the moment is a transformative skill. It takes us to places that we wouldn't have been able to go otherwise in terms of the width and breadth of our experience. More than this, it allows us to arrest negative thoughts and unnecessary worry and rumination. So we get to identify it and we get to step out of it. We don't have to just be swept along with the unpleasant feelings and thoughts. It allows us to understand ourselves better as well. So as such, it's a really effective stress management tool. There's so many forces today, of course, competing for our attention. And this is extremely distracting because what they're trying to do is they're trying to hijack the pleasure centers of our brain to give us that instant hit of dopamine, which is incredibly addictive. But whilst they are using pleasure, they are actually taking away more medium and long-term happiness. There's a lot of really helpful apps out there, of course, to assist with mindfulness practices. I'd really encourage you to experiment with these. There's really good YouTube tutorials as well. A little bit later in this series, we'll be speaking a bit about relaxation techniques, and that kind of has a big overlap with mindfulness techniques as well. And once we can kind of bring in self-compassion there as well, and we can have relaxation techniques that are linked to self-compassion and that are linked to mindfulness experiences as well. So mindfulness will heighten simple pleasures such as eating good food, enjoying a sunset, listening to music, connecting with a friend. It connects us with our present selves. It's a foundational skill for living a fulfilling, a grounded and a peaceful life. So that in a nutshell is what mindfulness is about. As I said, there's a lot of really good information and tutorial and apps that will walk you through the ins and outs of it. It's a commitment over time. It's a skill that you develop. But I hope I've convinced you that there is significant value to it. So my name is James Sturdee. I'm with the Regent Business School Counseling Services. We are, as mentioned before, still taking appointments during this time. We're doing all of the consults via online video counseling. If you feel like setting up an appointment, whether you are new or a present existing client, you can email on counseling@regent.ac.za and we'll set that up, completely confidential counseling session. Thank you very much for watching this video in the Regent Business School lockdown video series. Look out for the next one on Friday, where we'll be speaking a bit about the importance of nutrition and exercise in these types of situations for our mental well-being. Thanks so much.